Hi there, I'm Melanie Carr, and this is Erotic Abundance. I want to talk about the push and the pull, the negative and the positive in some of the best secrets for creating a healthy, successful relationship and maintaining an incredible, erotic, abundant connection with your partner or creating one with someone new. And part of this is being able to regulate your relationship between the intense experience of having an erotic connection and the beautiful relaxing into a loving, caring, kindness energy, and allowing the process to go back and forth in your life. Everything has cycles, the moon, the ocean, and that's a very female form of the expression of relationships, human relationships. If we look at it from an energetic standpoint, we have to create those ebb and flow experiences in the relationship, not just an intense erotic connection, but allowing that to go through its stages and recreating those stages. And some people are very good at this naturally, and other people have to work at it. Some people are just looking for that extreme dopamine release of the erotic connection over and over, and then their relationship just fizzes out to very fast. And then other people are able to manage that disconnect, loving, caring, and then the erotic connection, going through this process, these stages to keep that, the ability of the body to create over and over again the rise and the fall of the hormones and the energetic chemical release and stimulation of the whole process. And if you look at it on an energetic point of view, you can find all of the reasons for creating this. And if you look at it from a scientific point of view, every single scientific or reproductive system for every living thing on this planet was created by an ebb and flow of the chemicals and the hormones and the dopamine and all of the different processes that have to be gone through in order to create reproduction and exist as a human species. So if we look at that from a scientific point of view or an energetic point of view, in order to replenish the energy in the relationship and the energy in ourselves, and all of these things can be applied not just to people in romantic relationships or creating a romantic relationship with someone else, but they can also be applied to having a relationship with yourself. You have to have times where you go through this more intense erotic connection with yourself, with your own masculine and feminine energy, to create these more higher states of arousal and energetic creation into these more tranquil, passive, loving kindness. And so I would say one of the most powerful practices that we can have, even with ourselves, because if we can learn to do this with ourselves, then we can learn to incorporate it in our relationships. If we're able to take this time to say, okay, today I'm going to take time for my own loving kindness, my own caretaking. Maybe today I'll do some exercise. Or maybe today I'll take some time to have a moment to eat a little more healthy, do a meditation, have a calm breathing session, whatever it is that rocks your boat. Taking time to go through that more calm peacefulness, and then going back into that more heightened and more exciting and more energetically aroused state of more erotic creativity in your life. And then going back into that more peaceful, calming, and tranquil, loving kindness. So this ebb of flow is found in everything. It's found in the stages of the moon. It's found even in the more masculine energy of the sun, which is more like this constant light and heating, providing energy for our survival. As the sun goes through its phases of night and day, it's also going through its stages of really strong potential light energy and then darkness. And the moon goes through its stages where it goes smaller and it gets bigger, and the ocean, the water goes out and the water goes in moments, and then in tides as well, which is a slower process as well. And you can also apply this to your own life, because you're also having small moments of caring and longer moments of caring as well. Not just the ebb and flow, the fast ebb and flow, but the longer ebb and flow as well. The more deeper caring, the more deeper um, practices that we need to incorporate into our life, where we're really looking after ourselves and creating a healthy life. So any partnership, relationship, or even relationship with yourself where you're creating this kind of dynamic between going through this creative, erotic energy, incrementing through this caring and loving and looking after yourself, it's going to regenerate, and it's going to keep you healthy. It's going to keep your relationship healthy, and it's going to keep the people around you healthy. When we have relationships where one of the partners is not able to look after themselves, where they have addiction or we have addiction, well, everybody has addiction in some degree or other, because we're all addicted to having these high levels of dopamine release. So I think it's impossible to say that there's either addiction or there isn't addiction. I think it's more a question of managing the addiction that we have. Everybody has something that they have this experience, this chemical experience with, whether it's eating sugar, um, having some kind of adrenaline from doing exciting activities, sex, alcohol, cigarettes, pornography. It's an ongoing daily process of understanding which things are getting us basically turned on, which basically means that they're releasing these higher dopamine states in our bodies, and then we're going back into this loving kindness. And those are all very healthy as long as they are self-regulated. Like, we have to be on this process and this conscious understanding of, oh, that makes me feel really good and I'm looking for it, I'm looking to do that. So let's make sure I combine that a little bit more unhealthy thing, like having a cup of coffee in the morning, maybe taking it down to a half cup of coffee in the morning and then not having coffee again during the rest of the day, to having 6 to 8 cups of coffee and just totally wasting your nervous system on caffeine. And then having, like, okay, so that was really good. Now I can have a really high protein, healthy fat breakfast, and then maybe not have sugar until I reach the afternoon. So we go through these kind of smarter managing your quote unquote addictions, because they're all addictions when it comes to this process of dopamine release, but they can be healthy if they're managed in a smart, intelligent way. So this is where people have to become a little more consciously aware of what's motivating them and manage those motivations, but also combine those motivating, higher, erotic, creative, adrenaline type, dopamine releasing type experiences with the loving, kindness, caring, and the more softer, I love that, pillow talking type connections with your partner, making connection with your partner about talking about more romantic and calming, beautiful experiences. And then once you've regained all of the hormones and all of the energy and all of the chemicals that you need to create another higher, more creative, intimate experience. And then seeing how long you can carry that energy. How long can you carry this higher, aroused, erotic state in your body while you're creating the things that you came here to do in your life? You came here to be a healer, to help people, to paint, to write a book. You came here to do all these different things that you came here to do that are your passions. How long are you able to carry that higher state of energy in your life until you need to have that more a physical chemical release of which would be more like a physical orgasm and or an energetic orgasm which would circulate the energy in your body instead of just releasing it out. And playing with this process, maybe having the situation where you're creating that high creative state 2, 3, or 4 times, which would be like creative edging instead of physical sexual edging. Edging being getting yourself to very close to the physical orgasm, but not having the actual physical orgasm, using the energy or sharing the energy, and then allowing the energy to go back to the loving kindness without actually having a physical release of the dopamine and the actual ejaculation, for example, in a man, or a release of really high levels of dopamine in a woman with the physical orgasm. So you can have creative edging, you can have sexual edging, and we'll do a podcast on that because I love that. Just popped into my mind, and I thought that's a cool way of talking about using the creative energy consistently, and reaching higher states of creativity before looking to have a more physical release and not being able to sustain that high level of energy. It's like when you meet someone and you're in the beginning of a relationship and it's so erotic and there's such high levels of um, dopamine release and all of the chemical. I'm not a neuroscientist or a scientist in that area, but there's a lot of information for us now about this process. So everyone's listening to information about it. We can add it into our more information and more energetic or spiritual or psychology information. It's important that we start understanding how the body actually works on a chemical way and not just on an energetic spiritual way, because scientifically there's information for this now that can explain to us how this works, and we should be incorporating all of this together. So I'm talking about it without maybe having all the exact phrasings, but I think people understand what I mean when I'm talking about the dopamine release and the serotonin and all the different levels of hormones. And I'm not a scientifically minded person who can remember all the right terminology, but I can clearly understand the idea of how it works chemically and apply that to conversations about this in a more psychological or a more spiritual, energetic idea of what we came here to do in order to not just reproduce as a human species, but thrive as creative and people that are here to have some kind of mission in our lives. And finding that life mission for some people is extremely difficult, and others it's just kind of already there. They just sort of are born knowing what they came here to do. For me, it's always been really clear. You're here to help people with their relationships and human sexuality and their life mission. For me, it was so clear, even from when I was just like 13, 14, 15 years old. I knew I wanted to be a singer, share music as a creative expression. And then when I got to enough maturity on my studies about human sexuality and erotic human love relationships, this whole place in my life where I matured that information, I knew that instead of singing, I was supposed to use my voice to help people understand why they're here and what they're supposed to do with their energy, their creative energy. So I had the opportunity to experience it as a creative artist, as a musician. I I made a CD. I wrote a CD and recorded it in a pretty cool studio in Cuba with awesome musicians. I had a just amazing creative opportunity to have that experience, and yet I always knew that I wasn't here to become a famous musician. I was here to use the experience of being a creative artist for my higher life purpose, which was understanding, studying, and sharing information about human sexuality and creative spiritual process for your life mission. I just knew that was just eminently engraved into my purpose here and my life experiences. Ever since I was even a young girl, my life experiences had to do with my life purpose. So for me, it was really, really clear. And for other people, it's not so clear. And what I suggest they do is just simply start working on the areas in their life that they're passionate about. Because there's not a single person in this world who doesn't have something that they enjoy doing. And it can just be something as simple as remembering that when you were a child, you really enjoyed sitting down and coloring. Um, a lot of this is also created because when you sat and colored, maybe your mother came to sit with you, and there's this loving experience. And so when you sit in color as an adult, you get that passionate release of beautiful energy. Or they might say in the scientific world, the dopamine, endorphins, and serotonin, and all that stuff, right? But in the end of the day, it's what made us feel like we were loved. So we really enjoyed that. And this is where I think also I've realized that the universe sometimes guides us through those kind of loving experiences. There's something about that person that draws you. There's something about that experience that just looks a little brighter. And there's something about it that just glows, and you go towards that thing. It's kind of like this almost subconscious attraction to certain things in your life. And it's interesting because today my partner was saying to me, I didn't look for you and you didn't look for me. You know, I didn't come out and um, like a conquering, uh, trying to, um, like literally trying to go after someone. It wasn't like that at all. Just something about that person, something about him drew me to him, and something about me drew um, him to me, I guess. Yeah, I say that right? So we just slowly moved towards each other. We were working together, so we slowly moved towards each other because there was that caring, there was that loving kindness. And then at one moment, then there was that energy of attraction, um, because of that need that was there for a caring and a protection and a um, looking after each other kind of thing that was there. Little by little drew us closer. We were probably two people that would never even maybe spoken if we hadn't been in the situation we were in, but there was this kind of drawing, energetic drawing between the two people. And that's where, yes, I agree, it's scientific as well. It's because of our past and our childhood, and it's because of all those chemical things, and psychologically, it's because of our needs. But I also believe that the universe, the synchronicity of the universe, and our life purpose and our goals and everything draw together. And I think that if you do have a belief in a higher power in some way or other, I believe that we're also motivated by an attractive energy. And it's not 100% scientific, it's not 100% psychological, and it's not 100% spiritual. And this is where I want to join these three ideas in this podcast to try to give a more balanced idea of how we can understand the scientific part, we can understand the psychology behind it, but we can also understand the spiritual synchronicity, that universal drawing of how everything is all connected and there's this kind of purpose behind everything that makes it all just a little more worthwhile. And whether it's actually a true God experience, or whether you're Christian, or whether you're from any other religion, start naming them all. It's just an abundant faith system in the world, or whether you're just a metaphysical believer of universal synchronicity, which I try to sort of keep things that way, to not put my own belief systems onto anything. But the fact that there is kind of a faith of universal synchronicity in the world that draws and that guides and that protects us can be a very healthy part of the loving kindness experience. And whether you're more drawn to the scientific things, or you're more drawn to the psychological, the psychology of things, or you combine a little bit of all three things, which I think is a very healthy way to keep a balance there as well, because even in that three systems of um, analyzing human existence and evolution, it's also very masculine and feminine. It's also very um, creative, erotic, and loving kindness all kind of drawn into one, if you keep that balance between the scientific, the psychological, and the spiritual. Interestingly enough, it all kind of sounds like an S words, no, even though psychology is with a P. But yeah, the three S's. And even though it's not an S, psychology, it sounds like it. It sounds like one. So I think it's important to keep a balance and try to understand that we are human, spiritual animals living in a animal body, having a spiritual experience in a world that's full of ebb and flow. And if we can try to have this balance in our relationships with ourselves and also with our partners and the people around us, um, even in our work situations, if you're a leader at work, you can also use this process to motivate your staff, or the people as a leader, or the people that co-workers that work with you. You can work on having, like, okay, let's do a little bit of discipline and some healthy um, creative advances here, and then let's go do something really motivating and exciting together, and then let's go back to working on the foundation of what we're trying to create and do together. So if you can add those kind of ebb and flow experiences also into the workplace, it can also be very um, good way to keep a team together and to keep people motivated in everything. Because if it's all just discipline and work, and we don't get more balance between that kind of kind and peaceful relationship to having a more exciting moments in the workplace, it can become really hard to keep people working for you or with you, and keep them motivated and creative and excited about what they're doing. And if they're not excited about what they're doing in their relationship, in their lives, there will not be a much longer relationship, or a much longer like work experience, or even a healthy relationship with yourself. Life becomes very boring, and then we can find ourselves doing destructive things. And this is where we have to be really careful not to get off into any kind of addictive, destructive behavior, because it will ruin your human relationships, and it will ruin your health and your relationship with yourself. So this is where we have to learn to manage our addictions in a healthy way, and not allow them to manage us in a destructive, out of balance type of situation. So give that a try in your daily activities, in your life, in your relationships, in your processes of health. And try not to be too obsessed with too much discipline, and yet try not to allow yourself to go too far off the deep end and not be healthy in the kind of excitement and um, and fun And, like, look at them: alcohol, caffeine, sex, drugs, um, sugar, um, social media, all these things that are creating these um, dopamine responses. We're going after that because it feels good, literally. And yet it also feels really good to draw back, to have some discipline, to recharge, and then allow ourselves to go again at those things. If we need alcohol every day in order to be at peace, we're not having a loving, healthy, and kind relationship with alcohol in our body. But if we keep it to a limited amount that can help to relax or make things a little exciting, or charge up a moment of connection where the amount of alcohol that you've drunk is just kind of like an initiator. It's exactly the same as looking at something erotic to get turned on with someone, and then going into the loving kindness, the heart center, the creative connection. Get away from those more destructive things as soon as you can, but use some of those things. If you have them in your life already, use them to your benefit instead of them being a harming, out of balance addiction. I've seen people manage this very well by also switching up some of those things. Yeah, have a little bit of sugar. But if you're really addicted to sugar, have a little bit of caffeine, or have a little bit of, um, you know, adrenaline from the exercise that you did. Do something exciting, something that makes you feel a little bit afraid, and get other kind of responses happening, and learn to switch it up so you're not just getting that response from one thing. And also learn to have moments of peaceful calm and loving kindness. And I think this is where they did studies where they asked men and women what they looked for in a partner, and both men and women said that they were looking for a kind person in their life, a kindness and a loving energy that was there. And I think as long as your relationship with other people and yourself is healthy, kind, loving, and not out of balance with any of the addictions or any of the, if you're abusing yourself or others because of your addictions, that's when things are not going to work out. The minute you start having an addiction with alcohol, with sex, with um, even people that are with a heavy smoker, it can end up destroying the relationship, because the other person might not want to watch you become sick in the future when you're older, and they might not want to be constantly around the cigarette smoke, so it might become a problem in the relationship. Just like someone who drinks all the time, they're drinking all the time, then there's no a real connection between the two people. Though it's interesting that alcohol affects women much, much stronger than it does men. So I think as women, we have to understand that guys are a little bit more able to have like a few beers and not have it affect them in the same way that it does women, but it still becomes monotonous and tedious when a guy is drinking every day, or several times a day, or whatever. It just becomes too much, and at some point it's just like there's no connection in here anymore. So this is where people have to be really aware and conscious about how they're managing their relationships in their life. So check it out, keep yourself in balance, and try to keep that loving kindness energy in your erotic connection, both with yourself and with your partner and the people around you. Have a great day.